Admiral Hyun Woo sat in his command chair on the Coalition Defense Station, watching the peaceful stars outside his window. The station orbited the neutral world of Nexus Prime, where representatives from 47 different alien species worked, together to keep the galaxy safe. It was morning shift, and everything seemed normal until his communication officer called out with worry in her voice. "Admiral, we have an emergency transmission coming in from Velros Prime," said Lieutenant Dalmy, her fingers moving quickly over her control panel. "It's marked as highest priority." Hyun-woo turned his chair toward the main viewing screen. He had been Admiral of Coalition Defense for 12 years, and in all that time, the peaceful Villani had never sent an emergency signal. The Villani were known across the galaxy for their calm nature and advanced technology. If they were calling for help, something was very wrong. The screen flickered to life, showing the crystal form of Captain Nari, a Villani commander Hyun-woo had met several times at peace conferences. But now her usually bright crystal body was dim and flickering with distress patterns that made Hyun-woo's heart sink. Behind her, he could see smoke and flashing emergency lights. "Admiral Hyun-woo," Nari said, her voice shaking in a way he had never heard before. "We need help right now. The Krovar Empire has broken the peace treaty. They are attacking our worlds with weapons we have never seen. Our shields cannot stop them." Hyun-woo leaned forward in his chair. The Krovar Empire had been locked away beyond the Void Barrier for over 3,000 years. The barrier was a massive energy field that kept the aggressive insect-like Krovar separated from the peaceful Coalition worlds. If they had broken through, it meant trouble for everyone. "How many ships do they have, Captain Nari?" Hyun-woo asked, already signaling his staff to prepare for emergency action. "We count over 6,000 Krovar warships," Nari replied, her crystal form flickering faster with fear. "They have some kind of new weapon that goes right through our energy shields. Our defensive fleets cannot even slow them down. 17 of our colony worlds have already fallen. Over 1 billion Villani are dead." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew the Villani had some of the strongest defensive technology in the galaxy. If their shields could not stop the Krovar weapons, then no Coalition species would be safe. Commander Tae-min, Hyun-woo's second-in-command, pulled up tactical displays on his screen. "Sir, the Krovar are using quantum disruption weapons. They phase the energy right through traditional shields and armor. Our standard Coalition fleet tactics will not work against this technology." Hyun-woo studied the reports coming in from Villani space. The attack was systematic and brutal. The Krovar were not just trying to conquer worlds. They were wiping out entire populations. This was not war. It was genocide. "What about the other Coalition fleets?" Hyun-woo asked. "Can we get help from the Thraxian Empire or the Quillian Republic?" "Already tried, sir," said Communications Officer Young-ho. "The Thraxian fleet is 3 weeks away at best. The Quillians are afraid to commit their ships against quantum disruption weapons. They say it would be suicide." Hyun-woo understood. Their fear: the Coalition had lived in peace for so long that most species had forgotten how to fight a real war. Their ships were designed for patrol duties and showing the flag, not for facing a determined enemy with superior weapons. "Captain Nari," Hyun-woo said, turning back to the screen. "How long can your remaining worlds hold out?" "Maybe 1 week if we are lucky," Nari replied. "The Krovar are moving faster than we expected. They seem to know exactly where our weak points are. We think they have been planning this attack for decades, maybe centuries." Hyun-woo felt the weight of command on his shoulders. The Coalition Defense Force had 800 ships scattered across the galaxy, but most were light patrol vessels. Against 6,000 Krovar warships with advanced weapons, they would not stand a chance. "Sir," said Lieutenant Dalmy, "there is something else. The Villani are sending aid requests to everyone in the Coalition, even species that are not part of the main defense agreement." "Everyone?" Hyun-woo asked. "Yes, sir, even the humans." Hyun-woo almost smiled despite the terrible situation. The humans were the newest members of the Coalition, having joined only 150 years ago. Most of the older species still thought of humans as useful, but primitive. They were good at trade and engineering, but nobody expected much from them militarily. Their ships were simple, and their weapons were basic compared to the advanced technology of species like the Villani or Thraxians. On his personal screen, Hyun-woo watched as the desperate Vallani sent their plea to every world in the coalition. The message was simple and heartbreaking. "We are dying. Please send whatever help you can." "Anything at all, sir," said Commander Taemin. "What are your orders? Should we try to gather what ships we can and head to Vallani space?" Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display. Even if they gathered every coalition ship within a month's travel, they would have maybe 2,000 vessels. Against 6,000 Krovar ships with superior weapons, it would be a massacre. But they could not just let the Vallani die. "Send word to all coalition fleets," Hyun-woo ordered. "Tell them to converge on Vallani space as fast as possible. Every ship that can fight needs to get there now." As his officers carried out his orders, Hyun-woo watched the emergency broadcasts going out across the galaxy. He knew that most species would send what they could, but it would not be enough. The Krovar had planned this attack too well. What Hyun-woo did not know was that one species would answer the call in a way that nobody expected. On the human world of Earth, in the city of New Seoul, Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun was reading the same emergency message that had gone out to every coalition member. But unlike the other species, the humans were not calculating how many ships they could spare. They were calculating how many ships they could send. Ambassador So Young, the human representative to the coalition, received the Vallani distress call. At her office on Nexus Prime, she had worked with Captain Nari before and knew her as a kind and gentle being. The thought of the peaceful Vallani being slaughtered by the brutal Krovar made her angry in a way that surprised her. She immediately sent a message to Earth Command. "The Vallani need help. How fast can we respond?" The reply came back in less than an hour. "Tell them help is coming. We will have ships there in 4 days." So Young was confused by the message. She knew the human colonial fleet had about 800 ships, similar to the other major coalition members. It would take time to gather them from across human space. But the message sounded like they were already prepared. What she did not know was that the 800 ships of the colonial fleet were just the beginning. Hidden in the outer reaches of human space, in shipyards that the coalition had never seen, was something much larger. The humans called it the Reserve Fleet, and it existed for exactly this kind of emergency. When the Vallani plea for help reached human space, it triggered protocols that had been in place for over a century. Emergency signals went out to every human world, every space station, every mining colony. The message was always the same. Aliens need help. Time to show them who we are. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun stood in the command center deep beneath Luna City, watching as emergency signals lit up screens across the massive room. The call for help from the Vallani had reached Earth just 6 hours ago, and already the entire human military machine was moving into action. Officers ran between control stations, coordinating with fleet commanders across human space. "Sir, we have confirmation from all sector commands," reported General Mi Young, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Every available ship is being prepared for immediate deployment. The Krovar picked the wrong species to mess with." Dong-hyun nodded grimly as he watched the deployment figures scroll across his personal screen. The other coalition species thought they knew about human military capability, but they had only ever seen the colonial fleet, the ships humans used for peacekeeping and patrol duties. What they did not know about was the reserve fleet. How many ships can we deploy in the first wave? Dong-hyun asked. Admiral Jin Ho, commander of the 3rd Fleet, checked his reports. "Sir, we can have 3,000 ships ready to jump in 18 hours. Another 4,000 will be ready 6 hours after that. The final wave of 5,000 ships will need 36 hours for full preparation." 12,000 ships total? Dong-hyun asked, though he already knew the answer. He had been planning for this day since he took command 15 years ago. "Yes, sir. Every reserve fleet ship that can fly and fight. We are also activating the emergency response protocol. All civilian vessels that can be armed and equipped with military crews will join the fleet." Dong-hyun turned to look at the massive wall display that showed human space. Red dots marked the locations of reserve fleet shipyards and bases. There were hundreds of them, hidden in asteroid fields, on remote moons, and in the dark spaces, between star systems. The coalition knew about maybe 10% of human military infrastructure. "General Mi Young, what is the status of crew availability?" Dong-hyun asked. "Sir, we have more volunteers than we have ships," Mi Young replied, with a fierce smile. Every retired military officer has reported for duty. The space academies are graduating their senior classes early. Even civilian pilots are signing up to serve as transport and support crew. This was what the other species did not understand about humans. When one of their allies was in danger, humans did not calculate the minimum response needed. They mobilized everything they had. Captain Wu Jin received his activation orders while commanding a patrol squadron near the Jupiter shipyards. Within minutes, his small force of 6 ships was joined by dozens more as the reserve fleet came online. He watched in amazement as massive shipyards that had appeared empty suddenly came alive with activity. "Sir," said his navigation officer, Lieutenant He Jin, "I am reading over 200 ships coming online just in this sector. Where were they all hiding?" "Inside the shipyards, in the asteroid bases, docked to the hidden stations," Wu Jin replied. "Command has been preparing for this day for decades. Every human world has been building ships and training crews, waiting for the moment when our allies would need us." The truth was that humans had been quietly building the largest military force in galactic history. While other species focused on advanced technology and elegant ship designs, humans had focused on numbers and logistics. They could build ships faster than anyone else, and they had more people willing to crew them. Commander Young-Soo was in charge of emergency conversion operations at the Mars Industrial Complex. His job was to turn civilian ships into warships as quickly as possible. Cargo haulers became missile platforms, passenger liners became troop transports, mining ships became heavy assault vessels. "How long to convert the merchant fleet?" Young-Soo asked his engineering teams. "Sir, we can have basic weapon mounts and armor plating installed on 500 civilian ships within 24 hours, replied Chief Engineer Kyung-Suk. "It will not be pretty, but they will be able to fight." "Do it," Young-Soo ordered. "The aliens need to see what happens when humans go to war." Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. On Earth, retired Admiral Sun-ho was recalled to active duty and given command of the First Response Wing. On Mars, Admiral Bo-ram took control of the Heavy Assault Wing. On Titan, Admiral Kyung-min organized the Support Wing. Each wing would have more ships than most coalition species had in their entire military. "Sir," said Communications Officer Dalho, "we are receiving requests from Coalition Command for information about our response. They want to know how many ships we are sending." Dong-Yun considered his response carefully. The other species were already nervous about human military capability. If they knew the true size of the fleet being assembled, it might cause panic. "Tell them we are sending what we can spare," Dong-Hyun replied. "Do not give specific numbers until we arrive." What he did not say was that 12,000 ships was only about 3% of total human military capability. If the Krovar War continued, humans could deploy fleets that would dwarf anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Sun-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the heavy cruiser Soul's Pride, watching as his wing formed up around him. 3,000. Ships stretched out in perfect formation, from massive battleships converted from mining platforms to sleek destroyers that had started life as fast cargo haulers. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump," reported his fleet coordinator, Captain Mina. "Estimated travel time to Villani space is 72 hours. "Signal the fleet," Sun-ho ordered. "We jump in 30 minutes. Send a message to the Villani that help is on the way." Back on Luna Command, Dong-Hyun received confirmation that all 3 wings were ready for deployment. The speed of the mobilization was impressive even by human standards. In less than 48 hours, they had assembled and equipped a fleet, larger than anything the Coalition had ever seen. "Sir," said Admiral Jin-ho, "there is one thing we should consider. When we arrive with 12,000 ships, it is going to shock the entire galaxy. The other species think our colonial fleet of 800 ships is our entire military." Dong-Hyun nodded thoughtfully. "That was always going to happen eventually. Humans have been building military strength for 150 years. We knew that someday our allies would see what we are really capable of." "Are you concerned about their reaction?" Jin-ho asked. "Not really," Dong-Hyun replied. "The species in the Coalition are peaceful by nature. They will understand that we built this fleet to protect them, not to threaten them. And after we save the Villani, they will be grateful we had it." General Mi-young pulled up intelligence reports about the Krovar weapons. "Sir, our analysts have been studying the quantum disruption technology. The good news is that it only works against energy-based shields and weapons. Our kinetic armor and projectile weapons should be effective. So their super weapons are useless against our supposedly primitive technology? Dong Hyun asked with a slight smile. Exactly, sir. The Krovar designed their weapons to counter the advanced energy shields used by species like the Volani and Thraxians. They never expected to face anyone still using physical armor and chemical explosives. This was another thing that made humans different. While other species had moved to increasingly advanced energy weapons and defensive systems, humans had kept improving their kinetic weapons and physical armor. What the galaxy saw as primitive, humans saw as reliable. Sir, said Communications. Officer Dalho, we are receiving reports from Volani space. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. Captain Nari estimates they have maybe 5 days before the core worlds fall. Then we will get there in time, Dong Hyun replied. Signal all. Wings to increase speed. I want to arrive with time to spare. As the massive human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, word began to spread through human space about what was happening. On every human world, people gathered around news broadcasts to watch their fleets deploy. There was a sense of pride and determination that the galaxy had never seen before. The humans were going to war, and they were going to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. Captain Nari stood on the bridge of her command ship, the Volani cruiser Crystal Dawn, watching the tactical display with growing despair. 3 more colony worlds had fallen to the Krovar in the past day, and her remaining fleet was down to just 200 ships. The quantum disruption weapons of the enemy cut through Volani energy shields like they were made of nothing. Captain, we are receiving word from Coalition Command, reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Jae-han. Admiral Hyunwoo says human ships are en route to assist us. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours. Nari felt a small spark of hope. She had worked with humans before and found them to be brave and determined, even if their technology was not as advanced as other coalition species. Any help would be welcome at this point. How many ships are they sending? Nari asked. The message does not say, Captain. It just says help is coming. Nari nodded and turned back to the tactical display. She was grateful for any assistance, but realistically she expected maybe 200 or 300 human ships. The colonial fleet was known to have about 800 vessels total, and they could not send everything to one battle. Still, even a few hundred ships might buy enough time to evacuate more civilians. Across coalition space, other species were watching the developing crisis with concern. On the Thraxian homeworld, General Morduk studied intelligence reports about the Krovar advance. The humans are sending assistance to the Volani, he informed the Thraxian High Command. It is an admirable gesture, though I fear it will only delay the inevitable. Their primitive weapons will fare no better against quantum disruption technology than our own energy weapons. Senator Vexes Tala of the Quillian Republic was having similar thoughts as she reviewed the situation in her office on Quilla Prime. The humans are brave but foolish, she told her aide. They will lose their ships for nothing. The Krovar weapons make this fight hopeless. What none of them understood was the scale of what was coming. Admiral Sun Ho stood on the bridge of Seoul's Pride as his wing prepared to drop out of hyperspace. Behind him, 3,000 human warships moved in perfect formation through the strange gray dimension of hyperspace. His navigation officer, Commander Sung Min, monitored their approach to Volani space. Sir, we will arrive in normal space in 30 seconds, Sung Min reported. All ships report ready for immediate combat operations. Signal the fleet, Sun Ho ordered. Remember, we are here to protect the Volani and destroy the Krovar. Show them what human military doctrine looks like. The first wave of human ships dropped out of hyperspace in a massive flash of light that lit up sensors across 3 star systems. 3,000 vessels appeared in perfect battle formation, their hulls dark with non-reflective armor, their weapons already charging for combat. On the bridge of Crystal Dawn, Lieutenant Jae-han stared at his sensor display in disbelief. Captain, I am reading massive hyperspace distortions. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. How many ships? Nari asked, hoping against hope that the coalition had managed to gather a significant force. Captain, my sensors say 3,000 ships just appeared. That cannot be right. Nari felt her crystal form begin to pulse with confusion. 3,000 ships was more than the entire Volani military had ever possessed. Before she could process this information, her sensors lit up again. Admiral Boram's heavy assault wing dropped out of hyperspace next. 4,000 massive warships that had been converted from industrial vessels and mining platforms. These ships were larger and more heavily armed than anything the Villani had ever seen. "Captain," Lieutenant Jahan said in a voice barely above a whisper, 4,000 more ships just arrived. These ones are even bigger." Before Nari could respond, Admiral Kyung-min's support wing materialized in space around them. 5,000. Ships of every size and type, from sleek destroyers to massive carrier vessels launching clouds of fighter craft. 12,000 ships, Nari said to herself, her voice filled with awe. 12,000 human ships. Lieutenant Jahan was checking and rechecking his instruments. "Captain, the sensors must be malfunctioning. No species maintains a fleet this large during peacetime." But the sensors were working perfectly. The human fleet spread out across Villani space like a metal storm, their formation so precise and coordinated that it was clear they had trained for exactly this kind of deployment. Admiral Dong Hyun's voice came over the communications channel. Broadcast to every ship in the system. "This is Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun of the Human Colonial Defense Force. We received your request for aid. Where do you need us?" Nari struggled to find words. The human fleet was larger than the combined militaries of the 5 biggest coalition species. How had they hidden this kind of military power? "Admiral Dong Hyun," she finally managed to say, "we are honored by your response. The Krovar fleet is attacking our core worlds. But, sir, how do you have so many ships?" "We will discuss that later, Captain Nari," Dong Hyun replied. "Right now, point us toward the enemy. Across the galaxy, Coalition intelligence services were frantically trying to understand what they were seeing. On the Thraxian homeworld, General Morduk stared at reconnaissance images of the human fleet. "This is impossible," he said to his staff. "Our intelligence report said the humans had 800 ships total. Where did 12,000 warships come from?" His intelligence chief, Colonel Yong Ho, was equally confused. "Sir, we have been monitoring human space for decades. We never detected shipyards capable of building this many vessels." "Then we were not monitoring carefully enough," Morduk replied grimly. Similar scenes were playing out across Coalition space. Every species that had considered humans to be junior partners in the galactic community was suddenly re-evaluating their assumptions. Admiral Yelnara of the Sidorian Empire was studying population and industrial data about human space. "Wait," she said to her aide, "humans have 400 billion people across 2,000 worlds. If even a small percentage of their population serves in the military..." The realization hit her like a physical blow. Humans did not just have a military. Based on their population and industrial capacity, they could potentially support a military larger than all other coalition forces combined. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador So Young was receiving frantic communications from coalition representatives demanding explanations. She tried to remain calm as she answered their questions. "How long has your species been building this fleet?" asked Ambassador Morvek of the Centauri Union. "Humans have been preparing to defend our allies since we joined the coalition," So Young replied diplomatically. "We believe in being ready for any emergency." "But 12,000 ships?" pressed Senator Vextala. "That is larger than our combined fleets." "Humans take the defense of peaceful species very seriously," So Young said. "We learned from our own history that those who can fight have a responsibility to protect those who cannot." What she did not tell them was that the 12,000 ships were just the beginning. In hidden shipyards across human space, construction continued on thousands more vessels. Humans had been building military strength for over a century, preparing for the day when the galaxy would need them. "Captain," Nari watched in amazement as the human fleet formed up around the remaining Villani ships. The humans moved with a precision and coordination that spoke of decades of training and preparation. Every ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. "Captain," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Sujin, "the human ships are using kinetic, armor, and projectile weapons. Their technology is different from ours, but their formations and tactics are incredibly sophisticated." Nari realized that the galaxy had been wrong about humans. They were not primitive. They were practical. While other species had focused on advancing their energy weapons and shield technology, humans had perfected the art of logistics, coordination, and overwhelming force. "Sir," Lieutenant Jae-han said, "Admiral Dong-hyun is requesting tactical information about Krovar positions and capabilities." "Send him everything we have," Nari ordered. "And Lieutenant, send a message to all remaining Volani worlds. Tell them the humans have arrived, and they brought enough ships to win this war." As word spread through Volani space about the arrival of 12,000 human warships, something changed in the mood of the survivors. For the first time since the Krovar attack began, they had hope. The humans had not just answered their call for aid, they had answered it with the largest fleet anyone had ever seen. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans went to war. Admiral Dong-hyun stood in the command center of his flagship, the massive battleship Earth's Resolve, studying tactical displays that showed the positions of both human and Krovar forces. The enemy fleet was spread across 3 star systems, systematically destroying Volani colonies. 6,000 Krovar warships armed with quantum disruption weapons that had made them seemingly unstoppable. Captain Nari had joined the human command staff aboard Earth's Resolve, sharing everything the Volani knew about Krovar tactics and technology. Her crystal form pulsed with nervous energy as she watched human officers plan their attack. "Admiral, the Krovar weapons phase energy directly through our shields," Nari explained to the assembled human commanders. "They render our defensive systems completely useless. That is why no coalition force has been able to stop them." Tactical Officer Jae-sung studied the technical data with interest. "Sir, these quantum disruption weapons are specifically designed to counter energy-based defenses. But our ships use kinetic armor plating and physical projectile weapons." Admiral Sunho, commander of the First Response Wing, smiled grimly. "So their super weapons are designed to counter advanced technology, but humans still use what they consider primitive weapons systems." "Exactly," Dong-hyun replied. "Their weapons will have minimal effect on our armor, and our kinetic weapons will punch right through their hulls." They prepared to fight the Coalition's energy-based military doctrine, not human combined arms tactics. This was the advantage that no one in the galaxy had considered. While other species had advanced beyond kinetic weapons, viewing them as outdated, humans had continued to improve and perfect them. Human ships carried railguns that could fire projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, and missile systems that used chemical explosives enhanced with antimatter warheads. Commander Sung-min, coordinating the fighter wings, reported readiness status. "Sir, we have 50,000 fighter craft ready for deployment. Each one is piloted by a human who grew up playing combat simulation games. They know how to swarm enemy formations." Admiral Bo-ram, commanding the heavy assault wing, added her report. "Sir, the converted mining ships are equipped with industrial-grade cutting lasers and impact hammers. Against Krovar armor, they will be devastatingly effective." Dong-hyun nodded as he reviewed the battle plan. Humans had developed military doctrine based on overwhelming force applied at multiple points simultaneously. While other species preferred elegant solutions with minimal casualties, humans believed in using massive overkill to end conflicts quickly. The Krovar expect to fight scattered coalition defenders using traditional tactics, Dong-hyun told his commanders. Instead, they will face coordinated human pack tactics with numerical superiority. We are going to show them what happens when humans defend their allies. The Krovar fleet commander Gextar sat in his command throne aboard the massive dreadnought, Void Render, reviewing reports of the systematic destruction of Volani colonies. His insectoid form clicked with satisfaction as another enemy world fell to his quantum disruption weapons. "Commander, we are detecting massive hyperspace distortions in the Velros system," reported his tactical officer. "Multiple ships are arriving." "Coalition reinforcements?" Gextar asked with amusement. "How many ships dare to face us?" "Sir, I am reading. This cannot be correct. My sensors indicate 12,000 warships." Gextar's mandibles clicked in disbelief. 12,000? The entire coalition military has perhaps 3,000 ships total. Check your instruments. But the instruments were working correctly. On the tactical display, Gextar watched as the largest fleet in galactic history formed up in perfect battle formation. Ships of every size and configuration, all bearing the markings of the human colonial defense force. Sir, intelligence reports said the humans had only 800 ships, said his aide nervously. Intelligence was wrong, Gextar replied, though his confidence was shaken. No matter. Quantum disruption weapons will cut through their primitive shields just as easily as Volani energy barriers. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The battle began with Admiral Kyung Min's fighter wings. 50,000 human fighters launched from their carrier ships and swarmed toward the Krovar fleet. Each fighter was small and fast, piloted by humans who had trained on combat simulations since childhood. The Krovar point defense systems, designed to stop the larger coalition fighter craft, were overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers. Human fighters moved in coordinated groups, using pack tactics that no other species employed. Sir, enemy fighters are breaching our defensive perimeter, reported a Krovar officer to Fleet Commander Gextar. They are not following standard coalition attack patterns. How many fighters are they deploying? Gextar demanded. Over 50,000, sir. Our point defense cannot track them all. On Earth's resolve, Commander Sung-min coordinated the fighter assault with practiced efficiency. All wings, remember your training. The enemy thinks in terms of individual combat. We think in terms of pack hunting. Stay in formation and overwhelm their defenses. Human fighters swarmed around Krovar ships like angry insects, striking at weapon systems and sensor arrays. Their tactics were chaotic by coalition standards, but devastatingly effective. The second phase of the battle began when Admiral Boram's heavy assault wing opened fire with their kinetic weapons. Massive railguns hurled projectiles at incredible speeds, while missile launchers filled space with thousands of warheads. The Krovar activated their quantum disruption weapons, expecting to phase the incoming attacks harmlessly through their targets. Instead, they watched in horror as solid projectiles smashed through their hulls like they were made of paper. Sir, enemy weapons are not being affected by quantum disruption, reported a panicked Krovar officer. Our defensive systems are useless against their kinetic attacks. Fleet Commander Gextar stared at his tactical display as human weapons tore through his fleet. The Krovar had spent centuries developing weapons specifically designed to counter coalition energy systems. They had never considered that someone might still use physical projectiles. Return fire with all weapons, Gextar ordered desperately. The other Krovar fleet unleashed everything they had at the human ships. Quantum disruption beams lanced out toward the advancing human formation, designed to phase energy directly through any defensive system. But human ships did not rely on energy shields. They used thick armor plating made from enhanced metals and composite materials. The quantum disruption weapons, so effective against Volani energy barriers, barely scratched the surface of human kinetic armor. Admiral Sun Ho watched from the Bridge of Soul's Pride as Krovar weapons struck his ship with minimal effect. Damage. Report, he called out. Minor surface scoring on the outer hull plates, reported his damage control officer. No penetration. Their weapons cannot get through our armor. All ships, advance to close combat range, Sun Ho ordered. Time to show them what human marines can do in boarding actions. The third phase of the battle was the most decisive. Human ships closed to point-blank range and launched boarding pods filled with human marines. These soldiers had been trained on high-gravity worlds and were stronger and faster than most other species in the galaxy. Captain Mina led the first boarding assault against a Krovar heavy cruiser. Her marines moved through the enemy ship with devastating efficiency, their kinetic weapons cutting down Krovar defenders who had never faced opponents this aggressive. The enemy boarding parties are incredibly effective, reported a surviving Krovar officer. They fight like berserkers, but with military precision. Our forces cannot stop them. Fleet Commander Gextar realized that his fleet was being systematically destroyed by tactics he had never encountered. The humans fought with overwhelming numbers, devastating firepower, and an aggressiveness that no coalition species had ever displayed. All ships, attempt to withdraw, Gextar ordered. We must regroup and reassess. But Admiral Dong Hyun had anticipated this. Human ships had positioned themselves to cut off every escape route. The Krovar fleet was trapped. Sir, the enemy is trying to retreat, reported Admiral Sun Ho. Not today, Dong Hyun replied coldly. Signal all wings. No Krovar ship leaves this system. We end this threat here and now. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, The entire Krovar invasion fleet had been destroyed or captured. Not a single enemy ship escaped to carry word back to Krovar space. Captain Nari stood on the bridge of Earth's resolve, watching the aftermath of the battle in amazement. "Admiral, your losses were minimal. How is that possible?" "Human ships are built to take damage and keep fighting," Dong Hyun replied. "And our crews train for this kind of combat. The Krovar were excellent at fighting the Coalition's defensive strategies, but they had never faced human offensive warfare." The battle of Velros was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. The debris field around Velros Prime stretched for millions of kilometers, the scattered remains of 6,000 Krovar warships that had been utterly destroyed by the human fleet. Admiral Dong Hyun stood on the bridge of Earth's resolve, watching rescue ships search for survivors among the wreckage. The battle was over, but its implications were just beginning to be understood. Captain Nari's crystal form pulsed with amazement as she reviewed the battle reports. "Admiral, your fleet lost only 23 ships against 6,000 Krovar vessels. How is this possible?" "Human military doctrine focuses on overwhelming superiority at the point of contact," Dong Hyun explained. "We do not believe in fair fights. When we go to war, we bring enough force to end the conflict quickly and decisively." Fleet Surgeon Yoon-ji was treating the 8,000 human casualties in the medical bays. As she worked, she noticed something that troubled her. Many of the wounded had been injured while protecting Volani civilians during the evacuation operations. "These Marines took wounds they did not need to take," she reported to Admiral Dong Hyun. "They put themselves between Krovar weapons and alien civilians. They could have stayed safe and still completed their mission." Dong Han nodded grimly. This was something about humans that other species struggled to understand. Humans did not just fight to win. They fought to protect others, even at cost to themselves. News of the Battle of Velros spread across the galaxy at light speed, carried by emergency broadcasts from Coalition Command. On every major world, government leaders and military commanders tried to process what they had witnessed. Senator Vex Tala of the Quillian Republic sat in her office, staring at intelligence reports that made no sense. "The humans deployed 12,000 warships in less than 4 days, she said to her aide. "Our best projections said they had 800 ships total. Senator, our intelligence services have been investigating human military capacity," her aide replied nervously. "The preliminary reports are disturbing." "How disturbing?" "Based on their industrial output and population distribution, the humans could potentially maintain a military force of over 400,000 ships. The 12,000 they sent to help the Volani was less than 3% of their total capability." Vextala felt her confidence in galactic stability shatter. For 150 years, the Coalition had assumed humans were useful junior partners. Instead, they had been living next to the most powerful military force in galactic history. General Morduk of the Thraxian Empire was having similar revelations as he reviewed the tactical footage from Velros. "Their coordination was perfect," he told his staff. 12,000 ships moving as a single unit, with no communication delays or tactical confusion. They have been training for this kind of operation for decades. "Sir, there is something else," reported his intelligence chief. "We have detected massive hidden shipyards in human space, facilities that we never knew existed, capable of building hundreds of ships simultaneously." "How many shipyards?" Morduk asked. "At least 300 major facilities, sir, plus thousands of smaller construction sites. The humans have been building military infrastructure on a scale we never imagined." Admiral Yelnara of the Sidorian Empire was conducting her own analysis of human capabilities. The numbers were staggering. "They have 400 billion people across 2,000 worlds," she explained to the Sidorian High Council. "Even if only 1% of their population serves in the military, that would be 4 billion soldiers." "4 billion?" asked Chancellor Veltaran in disbelief. "Sir, the entire Coalition military has maybe 50 million personnel total. The humans could potentially field a military force larger than all other species combined." The realization was spreading across the galaxy. Humans were not the newest, weakest members of the Coalition. They were potentially the strongest military power in galactic history, and they had been hiding their true strength for over a century. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador So Young found herself surrounded by representatives from every coalition species, all demanding explanations. The emergency session of the Coalition Council had been called specifically to address the human military revelation. Ambassador So Young, said Chancellor Veltaran of the Coalition, we need to understand what your species has been preparing for. A fleet of 12,000 ships represents a level of military preparation that suggests you expect major conflicts. So Young stood calmly before the assembled representatives. She had been briefed for this moment by Earth Command. Honorable representatives, humans have always believed that those who can fight have a responsibility to protect those who cannot. We built our military capacity to defend our allies, not to threaten them. But why hide it? Asked Senator Vextala. Why let us believe you were weaker than you actually are? Because we wanted to be judged by our actions, not our military strength, So Young replied. We joined the coalition to build peace, not to intimidate other species with our weapons. Admiral Yelnara leaned forward. Ambassador, if 12,000 ships is only a small portion of your total fleet, what would happen if someone actually threatened humanity directly? So Young's expression became serious. You would see what happens when 400 billion humans decide that someone needs to be stopped. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans had not just answered the Vellani plea for aid. They had revealed that the galaxy's entire power structure was based on incomplete information. Back in Vellani space, Captain Nari was working with Admiral Bo-Ram to establish new defensive positions around the surviving Vellani worlds. The cooperation between human and Vellani forces was remarkably smooth, despite the vast difference in their military philosophies. Admiral, I must ask, Nari said during a planning session. Your species has this incredible military power, but you use it only to help others. Why? Bo-Ram considered the question carefully. Because we learned from our own history that power without restraint leads to destruction. We choose to be strong so that we can protect the weak, not dominate them. But surely some humans must want to use your military for conquest, Nari pressed. Some do, Bo-Ram admitted. But they are outnumbered by those who believe our strength should serve peace. That is why we build defensive alliances instead of demanding tribute. This was the revelation that would reshape galactic politics. Humans possessed overwhelming military superiority, but they chose to use it for protection rather than conquest. They were not aggressive expansionists. They were guardians. Word of the human fleet's capabilities reached the Krovar Empire within days. Emperor Gexnar, supreme ruler of the Krovar, received reports of the complete destruction of his invasion fleet with growing alarm. They destroyed 6,000 ships without losing even 50 of their own? He asked his military advisors. Yes, Emperor. The humans used tactics and weapons that our forces had never encountered. Our quantum disruption technology was completely ineffective against their kinetic armor systems. And intelligence estimates of their total fleet strength? Conservative estimates suggest they could deploy over 100,000 warships, Emperor. Aggressive estimates go much higher. Emperor Gexnar realized that the Krovar Empire had made a catastrophic error. They had attacked Coalition space believing they faced weak, divided species. Instead, they had provoked a response from the galaxy's apex predator. Send a message to Coalition Command, he ordered. The Krovar Empire requests immediate peace negotiations. The message reached Admiral Dong-hyun as he was overseeing the establishment of permanent human bases in Vellani space. The speed of the Krovar surrender surprised even him. Sir, the Krovar are asking for peace talks, reported Communications Officer Dalho. They say they want to discuss terms for ending hostilities. Terms? Dong-hyun replied. They started a genocidal war against our allies. The terms are simple. Complete withdrawal from Coalition space, reparations for the damage they caused, and permanent monitoring of their military activities. What he did not say was that humans were already planning for the possibility that the Krovar might refuse. Hidden shipyards across human space were accelerating production schedules. If the war continued, the next human fleet would be even larger. Ambassador So Young stood before the Coalition Council once more, this time to discuss the new reality of galactic politics. The human position is simple, she announced. We will use our military strength to protect any coalition member that asks for help. We do not seek territory or tribute. We seek only to ensure that peaceful species can live without fear. Chancellor Veltaran asked the question that everyone was thinking. And if we do not want your protection? If we prefer to handle our own defense? Then you are free to do so, So Young replied. But if anyone, anywhere in Coalition space, calls for aid against oppression, we will answer that call. The Coalition voted that day to establish the Mutual Defense Compact, with humans as the primary military guarantor. 17 species signed immediately. Others took more time to consider the implications. Captain Nari, now promoted to admiral and serving as liaison between Villani and human forces, reflected on how much had changed. "We thought we were calling for help from the newest coalition member," she told her staff. "Instead,